Okay, the webinar is now live.
Okay. So let me start. Thank you for all of you that are participating in this session. My name is Orlando Gomes. I'm the president of Cscr, and my introduction here is essentially to present the keynote speaker of this session, Professor Lúcia Lima Rodrigues. But before that, of course, I would like to give my compliments to Professor Nick Capaldi, to Professor Samuel Idovu, and to all the organizing committee of this conference, namely Professor and mainly Professor Irene Rayan, who has committed herself very much to the success of this conference today. Professor Lúcia Lima Rodrigues is in fact one of the most important persons that we have in Portugal in the areas of research in accounting. We had the pleasure of having her in Cscr 2 or 3 years ago, and it was a very important session for us. It was a seminar that, in fact, stimulated many of our professors and students in the area of accounting to pursue their academic careers, and we are very grateful for that. Before giving the word to Professor Lúcia Lima Rodrigues, I just emphasize some of the points that you have in the program about the presentation of Professor Lúcia Lima Rodrigues. She is in fact a full professor of accounting and a member of the research unit of University of Minho in Braga, north of Portugal. And her research has to do not only with accounting, international accounting, accounting history, but also with the areas of corporate social responsibility. And she has published in many academic journals in the area. She is part of many of accounting boards in Portugal and all over the world, and she is recognized as an authority in this area, in fact, all over the world. And so, therefore, it is a pleasure to have her here in this conference. Before proceeding with the presentation of Professor Lúcia Lima Rodrigues, it is important to give the word to the president of the Global Corporate Governance Institute, Professor Nick Capaldi, who is in fact one of the most relevant persons in this area of knowledge and one of the persons that has stimulated, in fact, these conferences. We are already in the 7th conference, and Professor Nick Capaldi is in fact one of the persons that can best talk us a little, gives us some more notes about how we should take into account issues in this area of knowledge. So, Professor Nick Capaldi, if you please.
Thank you very much. We're really honored that in this session, we have Lúcia Rodrigues to make the really very, very important contribution to the conference. And I would just like to emphasize 3 factors. First of all, with regard to her scholarship, I note with some envy that she has over 10,000 citations to her work. And given my own background in philosophy, I was pleased to read one of her papers in which she somehow managed to make Hegel and Foucault not only relevant to accounting, but also intelligible to readers who might not have been familiar with those authors. And finally, certainly in the US, there is a kind of misleading stereotype of accountants. And the stereotype is that they are primarily bean counters, to use an expression, to trivialize the work. Somehow deficient human beings who are totally guided by the left side of their brain and without any imagination or concern for the wider implications of what they do. Clearly, in the case of Lúcia, she belies that in her professional work and in her just general approach to life. Her wide-ranging interests and commitment to corporate social responsibility are really worthy of special note. So it is a great pleasure for me to introduce her as a speaker. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for your kind words. I'm going to share my presentation. I think I'm sharing, not sure. Yes. And first of all, I'd like to thank the organizers and especially Irene Rayano for the nice invitation. It is a pleasure for me to be here with you. Of course, it would be much better if we could be all together in person in the beautiful city of Lisbon, but we are safe and this is the most important at the moment. I'm going to talk about the evolution of CSR reporting. First, I will introduce the topic. Next, I will present by chronological order the several standard setters that appeared since the 90s and how CSR reporting is evolving. And finally, I will draw some conclusions. We all here believe that CSR is currently an important topic, but the belief that corporations have a responsibility to our society is not new. It can be traced centuries back. Literature and formal publications on CSR began in the 1940s when there was some debate about the social responsibilities of corporations. However, the modern definition of CSR is from early 50s, and most of its practical implementations remained mostly with a philanthropic character. The first Earth Day was celebrated in 1970s, and as a result of social movements, social and environmental regulations appeared. As you can imagine, these regulations can have implications in terms of CSR reporting. In the early 70s, the CSR reports provided little value. There was no standard setter, and CSR reports were used more for marketing purposes. Information was not comparable, consistent, reliable, or useful. Only in the late 1990s and early 2000s, CSR reports began to be prepared using external reporting guidelines. In the next slides, I'm going to present the historic evolution of sustainability standard setters that are at the moment issuing sustainability standards and principles. With so many standard setters, we will conclude that there is no harmonization of CSR reporting at the moment. The beginning of a modern voluntary sustainability reporting may reasonably be traced to the Valdez oil spill in 1989. Soon after the Valdez spill, social investment professionals formed the Coalition for Environmentally Responsible Economies, which in 1997 launched the first sustainability standard setter, which was called the Global Reporting Initiative, or GRI. Thus, GRI standalone report has pioneered sustainability reporting since 1997. GRI integrated and unified economic governance and the CSR reporting standards into a single sustainability reporting framework. The GRI standards include a range of economic, environmental, and social topics. It is being said that about 93% of the world's largest 250 corporations report on their sustainability performance using the GRI framework. In accounting, we usually classify the GRI framework as a rules-based standards approach. Accountability was started in 1996 as the Institute for Social and Ethical Accountability to encourage increased accountability for sustainable development. Accountability principles first appeared in 1999. This helps companies to identify social and environmental indicators and prepare a reliable CSR report. The WA 1000 series included the WA Principal Standards, WA 1000 Assurance Standards, and WA 1000 Stakeholder Engagement Standard. The WA 1000 Assurance Standard was launched in 2003. It helps to evaluate the reliability of a CSR report. The WA 1000 Stakeholder Engagement Standard was developed in 2005 to help companies properly address their stakeholders' concerns. The WA 1000 series uses a principle-based standards approach. The Carbon Disclosure Project was launched in 2000 in the UK to disclose greenhouse gas emissions by the organizations. The Carbon Disclosure Project operates globally, and around 3,000 organizations have started working towards measuring and disclosing their greenhouse gas emissions in more than 50 countries. Climate change is a concern, so the Carbon Disclosure Project states that we must act urgently to prevent dangerous climate change and environmental damage. That starts by being aware of our impact so that investors, companies, cities, and governments can make the right change, the right choice now. The United Nations Global Compact was established in 2000. It is based on 10 principles of human rights, labor standards, environmental standards, and anti-corruption measures. The Communications on Progress, usually called COP, is an annual disclosure through which a business informs stakeholders about its efforts to implement the principles of the United Nations Global Compact. The COP does not have a standardized format, but it must contain an executive statement of continued support for the Global Compact, a description of practical implications taken to implement the Global Compact principles, and measure of current or expected outcomes. COP is also a principle-based approach. The GRI gained the credibility and the legitimacy when the accountability website stated that the WA 1000 series are designed to complement the GRI standards, and when the United Nations Global Compact in 2006 recommended the use of GRI standards. So we can see that major CSR reporting organizations appear to be interconnected and supportive of one another. The Climate Disclosure Standards Board was founded in 2007. It is an international consortium of business and environmental non-governmental organizations committed to advancing and aligning the global mainstream corporate reporting model to equate natural capital with financial capital. The framework is a standard tool for companies to disclose climate change-related information in mainstream financial reports. It was updated in April 2018. The distinctiveness of the framework is that it adopts relevant principles and objectives of financial reporting to complement mainstream financial reporting in terms of climate change. The International Integrated Reporting Council, previously the International Integrated Reporting Committee, was formed in August 2010. The International Integrated Reporting Council is a global coalition of regulators, investors, companies, standard setters, the accounting profession, academy, and non-governmental organizations. After a consultation process, the International Integrated Reporting Council published the first version of its International Integrated Reporting in December 2013. The framework was just revised in 2021. This figure is part of the revised framework, and I believe it is a good summary of the framework. It shows that the integrated report should permit us to understand how the organization interacts with the external environment and the capitals to create, preserve, or erode value over the short, medium, and long term. In the integrated reporting framework, the capitals comprise financial, manufacturing, intellectual, human, social, and relationship, and natural capital. But organizations preparing an integrated report are not required to adopt this categorization. They can use a different one. At the core of the organization is its business model, which draws on various capitals as inputs, and through its business activities converts them to outputs. The organization business activities and outputs lead to outcomes that can be positive or negative in terms of effects on the capitals. Another standard setter is the Sustainability Accounting Standards Board Foundation that was founded in 2011 in the United States of America. Sustainability Accounting Standards Board Foundation mission is to establish and maintain industry-specific standards that assist companies in disclosing material and useful sustainability information. Sustainability Accounting Standards Board Foundation operates in a governance structure similar to the structure adopted by other internationally recognized bodies that set accounting standards for disclosures to investors, including the Financial Accounting Standards Board of the United States of America and International Accounting Standards Board. The structures include a board of directors, the foundation board, and the standard setting board, the standards board, or the Sustainability Accounting Standards Board. The standards board develops issues and maintains the Sustainability Accounting Standards board standards. The foundation board oversees the strategy, finances, and operations of the entire organizations and appoints the members of the standards board. The SASB standards are directed towards the Security Exchange Committee reporting in the United States of America. The integrated reporting framework includes after the revision, the topic that the Sustainability Accounting Standards Board addressed in their standards, thus lending credibility to the Sustainability Accounting Standards Board. As we'll see next, these two organizations just merged. All these organizations issue sustainability accounting standards that can be adopted voluntarily by companies. The European Union is having a leading role in mandating sustainability information. Mandatory sustainability disclosures appeared first time in France in 2003. In 2014, the European Union issued a directive that required companies to present the non-financial statement. Since 2017, certain larger undertakings, that is public interest entities and exceeding an average of 500 employees, should prepare a non-financial statement containing information relating to at least environmental matters, social and employee-related matters, respect for human rights, and corruption and bribery matters. Auditors needed to assure that the non-financial statement is presented. To help companies to prepare the non-financial statement, the European Union guidelines were issued in 2017. The aim of these guidelines is to help companies disclose high quality, relevant, useful, consistent, and more comparable non-financial information. We'll see later that this is not happening at the moment. So these guidelines are framed in the context of the management report. However, an alternative presentation of the non-financial statement is possible under Article 1 of the directive, namely using the GRI framework in presenting a standalone report. In 2015, the Financial Stability Board created the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures with the objective to develop consistent climate-related financial risk disclosures for use by insurers, banks, and investors in providing information to stakeholders. Following the publication of the final recommendations in 2017, a series of pilot projects for banks, investors, and insurers began. Participants in these pilots explored the physical and transition risks and litigation risks for insurers, and also pioneered practical approaches for evaluating these risks using climate scenarios analysis. About 100 financial institutions composed the banks, investors, and insurers from all around the world have participated in these pilots. In June 2019, the Commission published additional guidelines on how to report climate-related information, which integrated the recommendations of the Financial Stability Board Task Force on climate-related financial disclosures. As you can imagine, with all these guidelines, standards, and frameworks, stakeholders and capital markets are calling for great coherence and consistency, since it is almost impossible to compare sustainability information. So, as a consequence, the corporate reporting dialogue appeared. It is an initiative convened in June 2014 by the International Integrated Reporting Council, designed to respond to market calls for great coherence, consistency, and comparability between corporate reporting framework standards and related requirements. It was launched during the World Congress of Accountants in 2018. Participants of the Corporate Reporting Dialogue are Carbon Disclosure Project, Climate Disclosure Standards Board, the Financial Accounting Standards Board as an observer, Global Reporting Initiative, International Accounting Standards Board, International Integrated Reporting Council, International Organization for Standardization, Sustainable Accounting Standards Board. As you can see, the group includes financial reporting standard setters and sustainability standard setters. As we'll see next, the overview of the financial standard setters is consistent with the aim of integrated financial and non-financial reporting. Why is that important? The work of the corporate reporting dialogue, because sustainability information is not comparable at the moment, and because there is a need to integrate financial and non-financial information in the annual report. Participants will identify how non-financial metrics relate to financial outcomes and how this can be integrated in mainstream reports. Participants of the corporate reporting dialogue are committed to ensuring the corporate reporting landscape is easily navigable. It is essential to harmonize and not to add to the alphabet soup that we have at the moment. Each company uses a different sustainability framework. There is no comparability, so there is a need to solve this problem. So what is happening at the moment? In October 2019, the trustees of the International Financial Reporting Standards Foundation prepared the paper for public consultation to identify the demands from stakeholders in the area of sustainability reporting and understand what the foundation could do in response to that demand. Feedback to the 2020 consultation paper confirmed an urgent need for global sustainability reporting standards and support for the foundation to play a role in their development. The trustees are therefore continuing their work on the establishment of an international sustainability reporting standards board within the existing governance structure of the IFRS Foundation. There will be a change in the constitution of the IFRS Foundation and the creation of a new board, the International Sustainability Board. Thus, the IFRS Foundation will support two boards, the International Accounting Standards Board, dedicated to financial reporting, and the International Sustainability Standards Board that will issue sustainability standards. This decision of the IFRS Foundation, I should say, that is receiving support from several organizations. For example, in February 2021, there was a public statement by the International Organization of Securities Commissions Board announcing the intention to work with the IFRS Foundation in developing a plan to establish a new board for setting sustainability reporting standards that meet the needs of the capital markets. The IFRS Foundation have reached the following views about strategic direction of a new board. It should have an investor's focus for enterprise value. It should have a sustainability scope prioritizing climate. It should build on existing frameworks. For example, the new board will build up the well-established work of the Financial Stability Board, the task force on climate-related financial disclosures. It should adopt a building blocks approach by working with standard setters from key jurisdictions. In terms of Europe, we also have some news. The European Financial Reporting Advisor Group is the European body that endorses the IFRS standards. It has just published 2 reports on development of European sustainability reporting standards. The first report, prepared by a multiple stakeholder task force, proposed a roadmap for the development of a comprehensive set of European sustainability reporting standards. The second report proposes reforms to a EFRAG governance structure to create a new board, a sustainability board. These reports were prepared at the request of the Commission, following an invitation by the Council. These reports are considered by the European Commission as an important step in the development of corporate sustainable reporting across the European Union. The directive is being revised by a FRAG, and sustainability standards will be prepared soon, because the European Commission believes that we have no comparability at the moment in Europe. So in the revision process, various scenarios are being considered, but at the moment, the preferred scenario is to extend sustainability report standards to all large companies, plus listed SMEs. SMEs with securities listed on regulated markets may report against the simplified SME standard that will be prepared. Meanwhile, all other companies can adopt voluntarily the sustainability standards. The European Union also will develop a digital taxonomy accompanying the reporting standards. And of course, the FRAG will develop what is being called the European Sustainability Reporting Standards. The standards should meet quality criteria, cover environment, social, and governance topics, take account of the European Union legislation and initiatives, and take account will adopt the standards as delegated acts. So it is being proposed that the information should be reported in management report. That is, it seems that the standalone report will not be permitted. Assurance should be required. Reporting on intangibles should be required. A sanction regime and enforcement should be established. And the double materiality concept should be adopted. It should be adopted not only an inside-out approach, that is all the company impacts on people and the environment, but also an outside-in approach, that is how people and the environment impact on the company. And as I told you before, the sustainability standard, the International Integrated Reporting Council and Sustainability Accounting Standards Board announced the measure, and they will be called the Value Reporting Foundation. And in June this month, 2021, the measure was official. So I'm going now to the conclusions, but as you can see, they believe that the measure will be important to position this board in a better way to work with IFRS Foundation. So I'm going to conclude in order that we can have some time for the questions. And as conclusion, we can see that demand for CSR reporting in the 19th has resulted in competing standards of accountability, and as a consequence in a lack of comparability, with so many stakeholders interested in the information incorporated into CSR reports. Any possible harmonization of CSR reporting standards seems to be a long and arduous process, but we also can conclude that in standardizing, there is no need to reinvent the wheel. The concepts that have been used for many years can be reused, making the process shorter. That is, we have knowledge that can be used easily. We also can see that the major CSR reporting organizations appears to be more interconnected and supportive of one another, as opposed to more competitive and contentious relationship that exists between, for example, the International Accounting Standards Board and the American Financial Accounting Standards Board. For example, the ISB and the FASB signed the Norwalk Agreement to converge the standards, but the convergence process failed. As we can see from my presentation, sustainability standard setters already merged. They also recommended standards of other standard setters. So it seems that we have a friendly CSR reporting environment. We also can conclude that the CSR reporting seems to be destined to become a part of the overall accounting reporting framework, as always have been, but now in a standardized format. The interconnection between financial and non-financial reporting is considered very important. This interconnection in the annual report seems to facilitate the company performance in the short and long term. Assurance is also considered very important for the quality of financial and non-financial information to avoid greenwashing, social washing, and cherry-picking behaviors. We also can conclude there is still much that needs to be done before CSR reporting is accepted on a global scale as financial reporting currently is. But I think we also can conclude that the growth and development of CSR reporting standards is evident, and the globalization of CSR reporting will be an important matter in the future. So thank you for your attention, and I am very pleased to answer your questions.
Thank you very much, Professora Lúcia Lima Rodrigues, for your very interesting presentation. I believe we have time for some questions. I don't know if I am checking the chat. We have nothing here. I don't know if Frederica Rayan has some information of someone who wants to place some question. I don't know if Professor Nick Capaldi wants to make any comments.
First, I think the most important thing that you have identified are how many organizations are busily addressing this issue. And I think that is a very good sign. However, I am concerned about the number of interests that may exist that want to give out false or misleading information. Have you done any work on identifying any features that we should look for in organizations? But you mentioned things at the end like being selective, cherry picking, etc. Are there people who are doing more work on trying to get through the camouflage that some organizations do to hide what's actually going on?
There is a lot of literature drawing attention to this kind of behavior. Companies tend to report only positive matters. Mm-hmm. So the idea is to have a standardized framework. They will have to comply. And of course, this will mean they will be addressing the same information and not only the information they think that will give them legitimacy. So at the moment, I believe shareholders, stakeholders cannot rely on what is being said because there is no comparability, and the companies just address the topics they think will promote them in the market and near stakeholders. Yes, and we can find many papers showing that greenwashing, social watching, cherry picking is they appear most of the time. So the advantage of standardized is to make information comparable and also to require companies to disclose positive and negative impacts, right, not only positive impacts.
Okay, thank you. I was checking again the chat and in the questions. We have no question pending. I don't know if there are no questions. I think we can close this session, and then we will evolve to the closing session. But before, I believe we have the best paper awards. Am I right, Professor Irene?
Sim, Orlando, Professor Orlando, we have some question in.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't see.
The reason you feel for very less use of some frameworks set against the others.
But
Are you seeing, Professor Lucia, the question of
what can be the reason you feel for very less use of some
Participant.
Well, I read the question. So the reason why some frameworks are more used, well, GRI is very used because it was the first reporting framework. So this is the reason why it has been used by large companies. And as I told you, almost the 2050 companies report sustainability using the GRI framework. And also, of course, the use of the frameworks also depends on the support they get from the markets and from important institutions such as the World Bank and others important players. Yes, of course. But I would say that if the IFRS Foundation will issue sustainability standards, that the world will tend to follow the IFRS Foundation standards in terms of sustainability too, because the IFRS Foundation is playing a global role in terms of standardization, and the accounting standards that are issued are recognized at the world level. These standards are being used by, I think, about 180 jurisdictions. That is, most of the countries use the accounting standards issued by the ISB. And so I believe that when the IFRS Foundation issues the sustainability accounting standards, all the world will try to adopt this kind of standards because of we need comparability. Comparability is very important, and assurance too.
Yes, Professor Lucia, sometimes I think and I have a question in my mind. Are the disclosures and reporting all really audited?
No, this is another issue because
there are the database for our work.
Yes. Yes, they usually CSR reporting is voluntary, and assurance is not required. Of course, there are the companies with audited reports, but I think in the future, in the European Union, assurance will be required. That is, at the moment, auditors are only required to in their audit report to say if the company presented or not the CSR report. In the future, they will have to audit all the CSR report. So this will bring, I think, benefits in terms of reliability, I would say.
Thank you, Professor, and congratulations for your presentation and for your work, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you for your questions and for your invitation.
I think we have another question. No. Thank you. Yes.
So if there are no more questions, I think we can end this session, and thank again the participation and the interesting presentation of Professora Lúcia Lima Rodrigues.